Okay, I think this might, yeah, I can hear the microphone working. Well, thanks everyone for being here. That great introduction. So I've had a great time this week, and I know everyone's seen a lot of formulas, but I do want to say that I'm not a physicist, and I'm not a biochemist. I'm a sociologist, and I did my qualitative research in Barcelona with the Open University of Catalonia, looking at a community of musicians who play a type of music from the Appalachian Mountains where I'm from. It's called Bluegrass. Okay, like I said, I did qualitative research into synchronization. That was a 5-year ethnographic study, participant observation. That means that you live inside your community. You try and take the same values as your community. You walk the same steps that they do, and you live the same life that they do. And I went to hundreds of events and hundreds of hours of interviews with my participants. One of the reasons that the main part of this study, what drives it, was that people who want expertise in this type of bluegrass musicianship, well, it relies on in-person entrainment where you learn face-to-face. It's a traditional type of music that you learn, they say, knee to knee, like sitting down and playing with someone is how it was traditionally passed, and how it's passed these ways a lot of times is in a jam session when you come together. And time again, I would hear from my informants that the best way for them to get better at bluegrass was to go to a jam session and play with someone who plays this type of music better than them. And I think that that applies not just to bluegrass music, but all sorts of types of music, and in general, any type of embodied non-tacit knowledge that gets passed on through the practice of doing it. So because of that face-to-face requirement of learning how to play it, it means that there's a little bit of a challenge if you live far away and you want to learn bluegrass music. So that's the main point. The driving reason for my research was to look and see how these peripheral communities on the periphery overcome these geographical obstacles in order to foster some local expertise. And I want to show you this video because I've talked a bit about bluegrass music, but I'm not sure a lot of people have ever heard of it. This is a video from my field work. And one thing I like about my field work also is that, well, I didn't take this video. We all know that when you observe your research, you can change it. And so part of my ethnography wasn't sitting there setting up videos or putting EEGs on anyone's head. This video was taken by one of the participants. They were always taking videos of each other and sharing it, you know, so I didn't have to gather this sort of data. I think you can really clearly see the kind of synchronization that's going on. This was what's called a slow jam. And so twice a month in Barcelona, where my community was, there's the regular jam where the best local musicians in Barcelona would meet and have a jam, but even within that jam, there's an obstacle for people to learn bluegrass and to enter into it because it's hard to be able to get to the point where you can reach the center of the jam circle and be able to participate when everyone's going really fast. So one of the organizers decided to start this thing called a slow jam. So this isn't necessarily the highest level of bluegrass in Barcelona, but it's people having fun there, and it's people clearly synchronizing. Damn. So I was really afraid that the music wouldn't work. So, do we know how to do the sound at all? There's a what? No, I don't think that's it, but. No, it's still just coming out of my thing. But anyway, that's my son right there. There I am right there at the edge of the circle, just sort of observing, looking and seeing what happens. Can you hear it? I'm sorry that it's not going through the system. I did ask about that, but it didn't. You know, you got people like that man on the banjo there. He travels from Andorra, a whole other country, just to come to this jam once a month. There's old Joan Manel Hernandez. Look at those 2, 3 guys right there. I mean, that's synchronization, but it's not. There's no Kuramoto model going on there. Those guys, they're not looking at each other. They just feel that, and there's a lot of synchronization going on. Everyone's having a really good time. Well, this is how people learn. That's how people in general learn bluegrass. Okay, so just to be fair, I do want to place some people with a little bit more expertise. And this is Bill Monroe. He's known as the father of bluegrass, just so you can hear what bluegrass sort of sounds like. Man, you know, I asked a little bit about the sound. I'm sorry about that. I asked if it would work, but clearly it doesn't. So, anyway, I can't share with you what it sounds like, but that's sort of like how a bluegrass band would go. And, well, anyway, I guess that's how it is. So I want to talk about the main concepts that I observed from my field work. There's synchronization, and that's what I kept hearing back from from the people that I talked to. That's what happens when musicians make music together. They synchronize. Who knows exactly on what dimensions they synchronize, but it's pretty awesome when it happens. I'd say the definition of making music is to synchronize. There's this thing called drive, and that's what makes bluegrass bluegrass. I can't necessarily describe it because even my informants couldn't describe it. It's a feeling that's like a rhythm inside the music that's a little bit above the beat. That's the hardest thing for a musician to learn if they're not from around where they've grown up with it. And it's the rhythm that sort of defines bluegrass. And then they talked about their nivel, and that's, I know half the people here speak Spanish, but the level of expertise that a person will have or that a community will have. And that's the ability for a musician to play bluegrass. And these are just sort of concepts that emerged from my field work when I analyzed my field notes and my interviews. And then there's these associations, which are the volunteer organizations that they have, that have come, that musicians, when they feel such a drive to play that music and they want to foster it, they form these volunteer associations to increase the local level. And one thing that those people do is they create these sync events. So we talk about that synchronization is what happens when you make music, but I like to think about something as there's that whole event of the synchronization, and that's what these associations do is they produce, well, this is a yearly calendar, sort of an example of a year from my field work where I saw the same people at all these events. And we have 52 weeks going around a circle here. And you can see how you have the bi-monthly jams, you have like a weekly rehearsal with the jam, you have that once a month slow jam, twice a year multi-day local events where we would bring in visiting experts to come and play, like the Barcelona Bluegrass Camp, which will be happening later in March, and the Alvarez Bluegrass Festival, which happens in November. There's also larger regional events like the La Roche Bluegrass event in France, or the IBMA Bluegrass event back in the States. So something that I noticed was these fractal associations, you know, and maybe fractal's not quite the right word. That's I think the danger of doing interdisciplinary work is sometimes you can maybe grab a term and you don't use it quite right, or you sort of romanticize what's going on inside the Kurumoto model or what's going on with synchronization, and you don't necessarily know exactly what it means when you're coming from the qualitative perspective. But I definitely have a better understanding of the Kurumoto model after this week. But these are self-similar associations that sort of fit inside each other. So for example, I've got, there's a band here. There's like there'll be bands that come to the jam, and then you've got the local associations. Like in my case, my field work was done with that Albrass, Bluegrass, and Old Time Music Association in Barcelona. And they're members of this regional association called the European Bluegrass Music Association, which is also a member of the International Bluegrass Music Association there. And so there's these sort of different levels of global, regional, and local. And each of these associations, they're tied to an event. Really, they're tied to a big synchronization event, as I called it, a time where a bunch of musicians come together and they synchronize. And the level of expertise moves in this diagram from the right to the left. At the IBMA, there's going to be the highest concentration of expertise, of drive, of this particular rhythm. And the local will have sort of the least. Okay, so what I found throughout there and what I think that could maybe come out of this for anyone here, if you're at all interested, would be this idea of the circulating pacemaker, which I think could maybe, is the one thing that maybe this sort of qualitative analysis could provide some insight into, and that is the way that we increase our, in the periphery, one of the ways that we increase our expertise when we need to synchronize and entrain in order to increase that expertise is to bring someone from the center into the, someone from the center who's got a lot of that expertise to come to a community and entrain with them, or have to have someone from our community go into the center to entrain. So I guess a clear way to put it would be with sort of an example. So at these multi-day events, like at the, at the Bluegrass Festival that's going to happen, we'll bring, we have so much expertise in our local community, and we're only going to get as good as we've got there. So we'll bring experts who have this rhythm from far away to come in and to entrain with the local community. And that's a way that you can sort of have a non-variance, I guess. So it's like if, you know, this is our local community here, and we've got musicians that are in a circle and they're jamming, and then, you know, the level of expertise, it just reaches a certain point and it doesn't get any farther than that. And it's because they're synchronizing with each other, they're entraining with each other, and that's all they can do. But then they'll bring somebody in from a place that's closer to the center that has a high level of expertise. And when that person comes in, they come here, they'll sit and they'll jam and they'll entrain with the locals, and they'll bring that level of expertise, that rhythm, that drive up in the local community. And likewise, the very best from our local community will go to like the IBMA event, and they'll entrain with people there, and they'll bring it back. So what that means is if you have someone here in France, you know, sometimes this person, they'll come over here, they'll come visit us in Barcelona, and then they'll come over here and they'll come to France because they've already made that trip across the ocean. And then they'll entrain this group. They'll entrain them, they'll synchronize with them and bring them up to that same level. And then they'll go back to the center, you know. And that's the way that someone from here who has never left maybe their little community in France can meet up with this guy right here who's never left his community in Barcelona, and they can still be able to synchronize over the dimensions of bluegrass. They can still be able to play bluegrass together without having without ever having actually met. And so I think that's about it for me today. I know we've had a long week. Oh, this is probably the most exciting part. Yeah, thank you. Obrigado. And yeah, thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Michael, for making us aware of the possibilities between different areas of the human behavior. So,